Welcome back to our channel, Serious Story Sessions. If you like our content and wish to see more from us, please click that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for future videos. Your support means the world to us, and we thank you. Enjoy the video. My parents brought a cat into my house, triggering a near-fatal anaphylactic reaction, then publicly declared my allergy a phobia and called me sensitive. Now I'm suing them for defamation, endangerment, and a permanent injunction to ensure my survival and safety. My parents are banned from my house for good. I never thought I'd say those words. They are my parents, my own flesh and blood. But some lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. And they crossed a big one. A life-threatening one, actually. Let me give you some background. It's important to understand why this is such a big deal. I have severe life-threatening allergies to cats, not just a little sniffle. We're talking anaphylaxis, swollen airways, epinephrine autoinjectors, emergency room visits. It's been this way since I was a child. Everyone in my family knows this. They've seen me go through it. They've seen me in the hospital. My parents, more than anyone, know the gravity of it. They were there for every scare. Because of this, my home is a sanctuary. It is a strictly pet-free zone. Always has been. Always will be. This isn't a preference. It's a medical necessity. My partner Alex is incredibly understanding and vigilant about it. Our friends know. Family knows. It's not a secret. It's a core part of my existence. A few months ago, my parents called. They wanted to visit. For 2 weeks. They live a few states away, so visits aren't super frequent. I was hesitant. 2 weeks is a long time, but they are my parents. I want to see them. I agreed. Before they booked their tickets, I reminded them. Mom, Dad, I said. Just a friendly reminder about the house. No pets, obviously. You know how serious my allergies are. My mom chuckled. Oh, honey, we know. Don't be silly. We'd never put you at risk. My dad added, your safety is our priority. Always has been. I felt reassured. Maybe I was being overly cautious. They sounded sincere. They arrived a week ago. Alex and I were so excited. We had cleaned the guest room, stocked the fridge with their favorite foods, made dinner reservations. They pulled up in their car. My dad got out first. My mom followed. She was holding a small carrier, a soft-sided one. It looked like a pet carrier. A cold dread started in my stomach. No, it couldn't be. Mom, what's that? I asked. My voice was a bit tight. She smiled, a little too brightly. Oh, this is Mittens, our emotional support cat. My jaw dropped. Alex, standing beside me, went completely still. A cat? I managed to choke out. Mom, you know I can't have cats in the house. You know my allergies. Her smile faltered. Well, yes, but Mittens is special. She's my emotional support animal. I can't travel without her. My anxiety, you know. My anxiety? What about my anaphylaxis? You said you wouldn't put me at risk, I reminded her, my voice rising. And we won't, my dad chimed in, stepping forward. She'll stay in the guest room the entire time. The door will be shut. You won't even know she's here. I felt a wave of dizziness. My head started to pound. This was unbelievable. They actually brought a cat into my home, the one place I was supposed to be safe. That's not how it works, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Cat dander. It gets everywhere. It sticks to clothes, to hair. It goes through vents. It's airborne. My mom waved a dismissive hand. Oh, you worry too much. She's a very clean cat, and she's small. We'll be super careful. They walked past me, carrier in hand, and headed straight for the guest room. It was like they hadn't heard a word I said. Alex put a hand on my arm. His face was grim. I stood there, frozen. I couldn't believe this was happening, my own parents. We can't stay here, I whispered to Alex. I can't breathe if there's a cat here. He squeezed my arm. Let's talk to them, try to make them understand. We tried. Yeah, we sat them down. I explained, again, the severity of my allergies. I talked about how even trace amounts of dander could send me to the emergency room. My mom kept insisting Mittens was hypoallergenic. She absolutely was not. It was a regular tabby cat. And that she'd be locked away. My dad just kept repeating that they would be careful. They refused to consider boarding the cat or getting a hotel. We already paid for the flights, my mom said. And Mittens needs to be with me. I felt trapped. Kicking them out wasn't an option I could easily consider for my parents. But living in my own home felt dangerous. I tried to cope. I bought air purifiers. I stayed out of the guest room. I kept my distance from my parents, trying to avoid any dander that might cling to their clothes. I constantly wiped down surfaces. Alex was amazing. He did extra cleaning. He kept an eye on me. He even offered to stay with a friend if it got too bad, just so I could have more space. I said no. This was my home. For the first few days, it was tense. Every time my mom opened the guest room door, I flinched. Every time she walked into a room, I felt a tightness in my chest. I took extra allergy medication. I kept my EpiPen within reach. My mom would occasionally try to make small talk about Mittens. Oh, Mittens loves her new bed. Or, Mittens is so playful this morning. I would just nod or change the subject. It was maddening. They were acting like nothing was wrong, like this wasn't a huge risk, like they weren't disrespecting my health and my home. One evening, about 5 days into their visit, I was tired. So tired. The constant vigilance was exhausting. I just wanted to relax. I decided to watch a movie in the living room. Alex was in the kitchen, making tea. I settled onto the sofa, my favorite spot. It's a big, comfy sectional. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a moment, and took a deep breath. A tickle started in my nose, then my throat. My eyes started to water. My heart hammered. No, it couldn't be. I sat bolt upright. I looked around. Nothing seemed out of place. But the feeling was getting worse. My chest felt heavy. I scanned the sofa, and then I saw it, on the plush armrest. A tiny, light brown hair. Just one, but it was unmistakably cat hair. It was impossible. They swore the cat would stay in the guest room. They swore they would be careful. Panic flared. My breathing became shallow. I started to cough. A dry, hacking cough. "Alex!" I croaked, my voice rough. He rushed in from the kitchen. His eyes immediately went to my face. He saw the fear. He saw my struggle to breathe. "What's wrong?" "Hituramrio ka Akaralmir," he asked, already moving towards the coffee table where we kept my allergy meds. "Cat," I gasped, pointing a shaky finger at the sofa. "Hair." He saw it. His face hardened. He grabbed my EpiPen. My throat was closing. It felt like a giant fist was squeezing it. My chest tightened. I couldn't get enough air in. This was a full-blown reaction. My parents, hearing the commotion, came out of the guest room. My mom had Mittens in her arms. "What's all the fuss?" she asked, her voice annoyed. I couldn't speak. I was gasping for air. My face was flushed. Alex didn't even look at them. He grabbed my arm, steadied me. "We need to go to the clinic. Now." He injected the EpiPen into my thigh. The sharp sting was a small relief. My muscles started to relax a tiny bit, but I still couldn't breathe properly. "What's happening?" my dad asked, looking confused. "She's having an allergic reaction," Alex snapped, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Because of your cat." My mom looked shocked. "But Mittens was in the guest room. We were just taking her out to the litter box. I must have just picked her up." No, she didn't just pick her up. That hair had been there. For a while. They had brought the cat out. They had let it on the sofa. They had lied. Alex half carried me out the door. My vision was blurring. My lungs felt like they were on fire. The drive to the urgent care clinic was a blur. Alex kept talking to me, telling me to focus on his voice, telling me to breathe. I was wheezing. Each breath was a struggle. At the clinic, they immediately put me on oxygen, gave me steroids, antihistamines. It took a long time for the swelling in my airways to go down. I felt weak, exhausted, scared. Alex stayed by my side the whole time. He held my hand. His eyes were red-rimmed. After a few hours, when I was finally stable, the doctor gave me strict instructions. "You need to avoid all contact with cats. Your reaction was severe. Another exposure could be even worse." As if I didn't know. We drove home in silence. The anger was simmering inside me, hot and bitter. My parents had risked my life. For a cat. Their emotional support, cat. When we walked into the house, my parents were sitting in the living room. Mittens was nowhere in sight. My mom started to cry. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I don't know how that hair got there. I just picked up Mittens for a second, I swear. She must have jumped on the sofa while I was talking to your dad." I looked at her. Her eyes were wide and full of what looked like genuine distress, but I couldn't feel sympathy, only cold fury. "You knew," I said, my voice hoarse from coughing. "You knew how serious this was. I told you. I begged you, and you brought a cat into my house. You let it out. You risked my life." My dad tried to intervene. "Now that's not fair. We didn't mean for anything to happen." "Meaning doesn't matter when I can't breathe," I yelled. It was the first time I had ever yelled at my father. "My entire life you've known about this, and you decided your cat was more important than my safety." Alex stepped forward, putting himself between me and my parents. "You need to leave," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Now, pack your bags. Get the cat. You're not staying here another night." My mom gasped. "But our tickets!" Our 2 weeks. I don't care about your tickets, Alex said. You endangered my partner. You lied to us. You broke every rule of this house. You're leaving. My dad started to argue. We have nowhere to go. That's your problem, I said, my voice shaking. You can get a hotel. You can go home, but you're not staying here. It was a standoff. My parents looked utterly stunned. They probably expected me to back down, to forgive them, to minimize it, but I couldn't, not this time. After a long, painful silence, my mom finally stood up. She went into the guest room. My dad followed, muttering under his breath. Alex and I stood in the living room, listening to the sounds of them packing, the scraping of suitcases, the soft meow of the cat. They came out a few minutes later, bags in hand, mittens in her carrier. My mom's eyes were red and puffy. My dad wouldn't meet my gaze. I can't believe you're doing this to us, my mom sniffled. You did this to yourselves? I replied, my voice flat. You put a cat on my sofa, a cat that nearly killed me. They walked out the door without another word. The silence after they left was deafening. Alex immediately started wiping down the sofa, then scrubbing the entire living room. I just sank onto a kitchen chair, still shaking. It's been a few days since they left. They haven't called, I haven't called them. My phone has a few texts from my mom saying she hopes I'm feeling better and that she's so sorry for the misunderstanding. No, not a misunderstanding. A deliberate act of disregard. I don't know what happens next. I don't know when or if I'll ever speak to them again. It feels like a huge hole has been torn in my family, but it feels necessary. I have to protect myself. My home has to be safe. It has to be a place where I can breathe. And right now, I can't imagine them ever being in it again. I still get a tickle in my throat just thinking about it. A few days later, the quiet of the house was still jarring. Alex had done an incredible job cleaning, but I still felt phantom tickles, still found myself checking for rogue hairs, still jumping at shadows. The anger hadn't subsided. It had curdled into a cold, hard knot in my gut. I tried to focus on work, but my concentration was shattered. Every vibration of my phone sent a jolt of anxiety through me, expecting another non-apology from my mom. Then the true audacity began. It wasn't a phone call, or a text, or even a knock at the door. It was a local news alert that popped up on my phone, sent by a friend. The headline was garbled, but the image wasn't. It was my parents, standing on the steps of City Hall, holding signs. And in a clear plastic carrier, prominently displayed, was Mittens. Beside them, also in carriers, were two other cats, one fluffy white, one sleek black. My blood ran cold. City Hall? What in the world were they doing? I clicked the link, my fingers trembling. The article was short, a local human interest piece, but the content was like a punch to the gut. My parents, identified by name, were protesting me. They were advocating for emotional support animals' rights, and more specifically, for the right of their emotional support cat, Mittens, to accompany them anywhere, including their own child's home. My mom was quoted, her voice dripping with melodrama even in print, saying, "Our daughter has a phobia, a psychological hang-up, that she calls an allergy. It's cruel to separate me from my beloved Mittens, who is essential for my mental well-being. We believe she needs to face her fears, not run from them. We brought Mittens to her home to help her overcome this trauma, and she kicked us out. It's an injustice," my dad chimed in, equally delusional. "We offered to keep the cat in one room. We promised she wouldn't even know it was there. But our daughter is being unreasonable. We want to demonstrate that cats are not a danger, that they are loving creatures that bring comfort. We are urging the city to recognize that emotional support animals should have unrestricted access, even in private residences, especially for family visits." I stared at the screen, a suffocating rage building inside me. A phobia? A psychological hang-up? They were publicly claiming my life-threatening medical condition was all in my head. They were staging a protest, with multiple cats, at a public building, using my health crisis as their soapbox to demand that I allow them to endanger me. This wasn't just a disregard for my health. It was an outright attack on my sanity and my lived experience. It was audacious in its public spectacle and irrational in its complete denial of medical fact. They had twisted the narrative into one where I was the unreasonable, cruel child, and they were the victims of my phobia. And they were using Mittens as a prop, along with two other innocent animals, to broadcast their warped version of events to the entire city. My phone rang again. It was Alex, his voice tight. "Did you see it? The news?" "I'm looking at it," I choked out, my throat already feeling tight, the familiar panic coiling in my stomach. The irony was not lost on me, reading about cats causing me a physical reaction. They called it a phobia. I know, he said, and I could hear the anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. I'm coming home. We need to talk about this. He was there within 15 minutes, his face a mask of controlled fury. He pulled me into a hug, a silent anchor in my swirling chaos. This is beyond anything I could have imagined, he murmured into my hair. They're trying to publicly humiliate me, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. They're trying to force me to get over my allergy by bringing more cats. They're insane, Alex stated, pulling back to look into my eyes. Completely unhinged. This isn't just about their cat anymore. It's about their pride and some twisted need to be right. The article had been shared widely on social media, picked up by various local animal rights groups who championed my parents' brave stance. Comments ranged from sympathetic, poor mother, just wants to be with her fur baby, to outright vitriolic, what kind of monster kicks their own parents out over a little allergy? A few people, thankfully, tried to inject reason, explaining the difference between an allergy and a phobia, but they were largely drowned out. For the rest of the day, my phone buzzed with notifications. Texts from worried friends, bewildered distant relatives, and even a few acquaintances asking if I was the daughter in the news. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly furious. My private medical condition had been dragged into the public square and misrepresented by the very people who were supposed to protect me. We can't let this stand, Alex said, pacing the living room. This is defamation. It's dangerous. What if someone sees this and genuinely believes they're helping by, I don't know, bringing a cat to our house? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. The idea of some well-meaning but misguided person attempting to cure my phobia was terrifying. What do we do? I asked, feeling helpless. They're my parents. I can't just sue them, can I? Publicly fight them? Alex stopped, turning to face me. His gaze was firm. They crossed a line when they risked your life. They crossed another one when they publicly slandered you and endangered you further. We have to respond, for your safety and for your reputation. He suggested we contact a lawyer, for a dispute with my parents. The words felt foreign and sharp on my tongue. It felt like an admission of defeat, that the familial bond was utterly broken. But what choice did I have? They weren't just misunderstanding, they were actively harming me, emotionally and potentially physically, on a very public stage. The next morning, the news escalated. The local evening news had picked up the story, featuring a segment with my parents, looking tearful and wronged. Mittens purring contentedly in my mom's lap. My dad spoke directly to the camera, pleading, "We just want our daughter back. We want our family to be whole. We believe she's being manipulated, and we simply want her to be healthy and happy, free from this irrational fear." My own face, a blurry photo from my social media, flashed across the screen as the unreasonable daughter. The comments section on the news site was a cesspool. I felt my chest tightening, not from dander this time, but from pure, unadulterated stress. My name, my picture, my medical condition, all laid bare and distorted for public consumption. Later that day, I received an official-looking letter in the mail. My parents weren't just protesting, they had filed a formal complaint with the city council, petitioning for an ordinance that would allow emotional support animals universal access, including into private homes, regardless of host allergies. The letter cited my case as prime evidence of the discrimination faced by emotional support animal owners. They had attached a copy of a dubious psychiatric evaluation claiming my mom needed mittens for severe anxiety and depression, and a letter from a holistic pet therapist stating mittens was indeed hypoallergenic and a source of healing energy. This wasn't just audacious. It was a calculated, manipulative escalation. They weren't just hurt and angry. They were weaponizing their emotional support animal status and trying to change local law to facilitate their continued access to my home, despite the clear danger it posed to me. They were using my near-death experience, twisting it, and turning it into a political battle for their own benefit. My family, the people who raised me, had become my adversaries, waging a public campaign against my very right to breathe safely in my own home. The hole in my family wasn't just torn, it had been blasted open, a chasm now separating me from them, filled with dander, deceit, and a chilling public spectacle of their denial. I knew then that a simple ban from my house wasn't enough anymore. This was a war, and I had to fight it, not just for my peace of mind, but for my very survival. I knew then that a simple ban from my house wasn't enough anymore. This was a war, and I had to fight it, not just for my peace of mind, but for my very survival. The words war and survival echoed in my head, stark and chilling. Alex found me in the kitchen, still staring blankly at the letter from the city council. He didn't ask what was wrong, he just took one look at my face and the paper clutched in my hand, and he knew. "This is it, isn't it?" he said, his voice quiet, but firm. "We call a lawyer." I nodded, the single movement feeling monumental. The thought of taking my own parents to court was sickening, a betrayal of every childhood ideal of family. But what choice did I have? They had not only betrayed me, they had put my life in jeopardy, and were now actively trying to strip me of my bodily autonomy and safety, all while publicly shaming me. This wasn't just a family disagreement, it was a sustained assault. "Who do we even call?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "A family lawyer? A medical malpractice lawyer? A defamation lawyer?" The words felt foreign, tasting like ash in my mouth. Alex sat beside me, taking my hand. His warmth was a lifeline. "All of the above, if we have to. We need someone who understands the medical aspect of your allergy, the public slander, and how to shut down this ridiculous city council petition. This isn't just about your parents anymore, it's about setting a legal precedent for you, for anyone else with severe allergies who could be targeted like this." That night, we spent hours researching, sifting through law firm websites, looking for attorneys with experience in similar cases, or at least a combination of relevant fields. It felt like assembling a battle plan, each click of the mouse a hesitant step onto a battlefield I never wanted to inhabit. We found a few promising names, focusing on firms that specialized in civil litigation, personal injury, and crucially those who mentioned experience with defamation or public relations crises. The first consultation was with a woman named Ms. Albright, her office sleek and sterile, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil I was carrying. She was sharp, her eyes missing nothing, her questions precise. Alex and I sat side by side, recounting the entire ordeal, from the initial phone call about mittens to the current city council petition and the relentless media harassment. I watched her face as I spoke, looking for any flicker of doubt, any sign that she thought I was being unreasonable, but her expression remained impassive, professional. When I finished, detailing the near-fatal reaction and the public campaign my parents had launched, she leaned forward, her hands clasped on the desk. "This is quite a case, and certainly egregious," she stated, her voice calm. "Your parents' actions constitute a clear pattern of harassment, endangerment, and public defamation. The medical documentation of your severe anaphylactic allergy is critical, as is the record of their deliberate actions and subsequent public statements." She laid out our options, the legal jargon softening into understandable terms. "Firstly," she began, "we will issue a cease and desist letter to your parents, demanding they immediately retract their public statements, remove all social media posts, and withdraw their city council petition. This letter will clearly outline the legal ramifications if they fail to comply, including a potential lawsuit." A cold knot formed in my stomach, a cease and desist letter to my parents. "If they fail to comply," she continued, "which, given their current behavior, seems likely, we will proceed with a civil lawsuit. We will sue for defamation and slander, based on their public misrepresentation of your life-threatening allergy as a phobia or psychological hang-up. This has caused you significant emotional distress, reputational damage, and frankly, put you at further risk by inviting public misunderstanding." "What about the actual incident?" Alex asked, his hand resting reassuringly on my knee. "Bringing the cat into the house? Letting it out? Nearly killing her?" Miss Albright nodded. "We can certainly include a count for intentional infliction of emotional distress and potentially battery or assault, given the direct physical harm caused by their actions and their deliberate disregard for your known medical condition. We'll also seek an injunction, a court order, to prevent them from ever bringing an animal near you or your property again, and to prevent any further public statements or actions regarding your medical condition." The word injunction brought a sliver of relief. To know that, legally, I could have a barrier protecting me from their dangerous delusion. "As for their city council petition," she explained, "we will file a formal legal objection. We will provide detailed medical evidence to counter their claims and demonstrate the serious public health implications of such an ordinance. We'll highlight the fact that their petition is based on a deliberate misrepresentation of a severe medical condition, not a legitimate rights issue." I felt a strange mix of dread and empowerment. This was it. This was the fight. It was ugly, it was public, and it was against my own family, but it was necessary. "What about justice?" I asked, the word heavy with all the pain and fear I'd endured. How do I get justice for this? Ms. Albright met my gaze directly. Justice, in a legal sense, means proving your truth. It means holding them accountable for their actions and the harm they've caused. It means a court-ordered acknowledgement that your medical condition is real, that their actions were reckless and harmful, and that you have a right to safety and privacy. It will mean financial compensation for your medical bills, emotional distress, and any damage to your reputation. But more than that, it means getting the court to tell them, unequivocally, to stop, to cease their harassment, to leave you alone and let you live safely. The thought of them being legally compelled to acknowledge the truth, to stop their campaign of denial and public humiliation, resonated deeply. That felt like justice. We decided to proceed. Ms. Albright and her team immediately drafted the cease and desist letter. It was a formal, intimidating document, heavy with legal threats and citations. Reading it, I felt a tremor of sadness for the finality it represented, a final severing of the parental bond I had once cherished. But the sadness was quickly eclipsed by a surge of self-preservation. They had forced my hand. The letter was sent via certified mail, and a copy was delivered to their lawyer, who, it turned out, was a family friend with no experience in this area, which Ms. Albright noted with a slight smirk. The response was exactly what Ms. Albright predicted. Outrage. My mom called Alex, screaming about how I was destroying the family and how I was ungrateful and cruel. My dad sent a terse email stating they would not be intimidated and that they would continue to fight for justice for Mittens. They doubled down. Excellent, Ms. Albright said calmly when we relayed this. They've just strengthened our case. Within days, our lawsuit was filed. It named my parents directly, listing multiple counts: defamation, slander, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and endangerment. It requested monetary damages for my medical expenses, lost wages, I'd had to take time off work due to the stress and lingering effects of the reaction, and pain and suffering. Crucially, it also sought a permanent injunction against them, prohibiting any further public statements about my medical condition, any attempts to bring animals near me, and any further harassment. The filing of the lawsuit hit the local news faster than I could have imagined. This time, however, the narrative began to shift. The initial reports, though still focusing on the family dispute, now included quotes from my lawyer, explaining the severity of my allergy and the medical facts. They published excerpts from my medical records, with my permission, heavily redacted for privacy, but enough to prove anaphylaxis. Suddenly, it wasn't just my parents' tearful story. There was another side. The comments sections, which had previously been a sea of vitriol, became more balanced. People who had initially condemned me now expressed shock and sympathy. "Oh my God, I didn't realize it was that serious," one comment read. "They nearly killed her," another exclaimed. The tide was turning, slowly, painfully. Friends and distant relatives, many of whom had been confused or even critical after my parents' initial media blitz, now reached out, apologetic and supportive. "I'm so sorry, I had no idea," my aunt messaged me. "Your parents really twisted things." It was vindicating, but it also highlighted how easily my truth had been obscured. The legal process was grueling. Discovery requests, depositions, endless paperwork. I had to relive the entire incident, the fear, the gasping for air, the feeling of betrayal, over and over again. My parents, through their lawyer, continued to deny everything, insisting Mittens had never left the guest room, that the hair was a misunderstanding, and that my allergy was exaggerated. They even tried to argue that their public statements were protected free speech, despite the clear, defamatory nature. During my deposition, my mother, sitting across from me, still maintained her wide-eyed innocence. "I would never intentionally hurt my own daughter," she sniffled, looking pointedly at me. "She's just so sensitive." My dad, equally stubborn, refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. "We were just trying to help her," he grumbled, "help her face her fears." But Ms. Albright was relentless, presenting photographic evidence, medical records, and the detailed timeline of events. She dismantled their claims with cold, hard facts. She brought in my allergist, who testified to the severity of my condition and the clear danger their actions posed. She used their own public statements against them, highlighting the blatant misrepresentation. The most difficult part was knowing that this could have been avoided. All they had to do was respect my boundaries, respect my medical needs. Instead, they chose this. They chose to endanger me, slander me, and drag my private life into a public spectacle. As the court date loomed, the pressure was immense. I knew that even a victory wouldn't mend the chasm between us. But it would, I hoped, bring an end to the active harm they were inflicting. It would be a legal validation of my right to exist safely, a powerful declaration that my health was not up for debate or public ridicule. The day of the hearing arrived, heavy with the weight of years of unspoken grievances and recent betrayals. My parents were there, looking surprisingly subdued, their lawyer whispering to them. Alex sat beside me, his hand a constant, reassuring presence. Ms. Albright, poised and formidable, stood ready. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with kind but piercing eyes, listened intently as Ms. Albright laid out our case, detailing every instance of disregard, endangerment, and public slander. She presented the medical records, the news articles, the city council petition, all meticulously documented. She painted a picture not of a sensitive daughter with a phobia, but of a vulnerable individual whose life was actively threatened by the willful and malicious actions of her own parents. When my parents' lawyer attempted to argue the emotional support animal defense, Ms. Albright countered swiftly, demonstrating how federal and local laws regarding ESAs did not supersede an individual's right to safety in their own home, especially concerning life-threatening allergies. She cited cases, precedents, and the unambiguous language of the ADA. Then, it was my turn to speak. I looked at the judge, not at my parents, and recounted the terror of gasping for air in my own living room, the humiliation of being publicly shamed, the constant fear of another misunderstanding. I spoke about how my home, my sanctuary, had been violated, and how their actions had turned my family into my adversaries. I told her that I didn't want their money, not primarily. I wanted them to stop. I wanted my life back. I wanted justice for the truth. The judge listened, her gaze unwavering. After all the testimony, all the evidence, she delivered her verdict. It was swift, clear, and utterly resounding. She ruled in my favor on all counts. My parents were found liable for defamation, slander, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Damages were awarded, covering my medical expenses, lost income, and a significant sum for pain and suffering. But the most crucial part, for me, was the permanent injunction. The judge ordered my parents to immediately cease all public statements, written or verbal, regarding my medical condition. They were permanently prohibited from bringing any animals to my home, or within a specified distance of me, anywhere. Their city council petition was to be formally withdrawn. Any further violation would result in severe contempt of court charges. As the judge's gavel struck, the sound reverberated through the courtroom, a final, definitive declaration. My parents sat stunned, their faces pale. My mother finally looked at me, not with anger, but with something I couldn't quite decipher. Perhaps a flicker of realization, or simply the shock of undeniable defeat. I felt a profound, exhausting release. It wasn't happiness, not exactly. The hole in my family was still there, perhaps now deeper than ever. But through the cracks, a sliver of light was shining. My truth had been heard, my safety had been affirmed. Justice, in its own complicated, legal way, had been served. I had fought, and I had survived. And now, finally, I could start to breathe again. If you enjoyed this kind of content, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next batch of stories. See you all next time. Goodbye for now.